They sat within a valley green. I sat me with my true love. My heart it strove me to between.
Everyone, and you're all very welcome to our last words show tonight. My name is Pádraig Downey, and just to explain to you a few things about the evening, we're going to go through the last words of the 16 leaders, the last letters that they wrote in Kilmainham jail. So basically, when they were court-martialed and brought into the jail in Kilmainham, and I had the honour of working there during my university years, of giving tours in the jail, and it was always quite moving to read. The real letters are actually in Kilmainham jail. It's a wonderful tour to do if you're in Dublin, and you can actually read all the letters that they wrote before they were executed. You'll also notice some anomalies as well. For example, Patrick Pearse, the leader, didn't know that his brother William would be executed the day after him. And indeed, they say that they brought William into the prison as his brother was being executed. So there's lots of different hearsay and rumours, and as we all know, we haven't really discussed this in our history in great detail. So it is fascinating to hear the words from the actual leaders themselves, along with some other great Fenians as well, because we've included the words of Wolfe Tone and Robert Emmet, who of course were great Fenian leaders who also rebelled against the British, as well as some of the women who were involved in 1916 as well, just to give it a little bit more context. We'd just like to, before we start, say a big thank you to McGettigans for allowing us this lovely space this evening, and also to Sean Quigley and Lane McGessie over here at the Gentlemen Bar Stewards, and they play here during the week as well, so they're well worth a look. Also, Ambassador Hennessy sends his apologies. He was booked, originally this was supposed to be on a Saturday, so he had that penciled in. Of course, he has a very busy schedule, so he sends his regards and his apologies. And yeah, so without further ado, we'll start with a piece of music from the gentleman over here. Thank you and enjoy this evening.
Eyes down our blind wandering stone, see hold on. There are lines of marching line and squadrons like sea by. No blade did harm nor button did sound its outer tune, but the angel was sped or the leafy smile, and now in the fun right body high over Dublin town, they hung out the flag of war. 'Twas better to die beneath an Irish sky than a silver bar soul. And from the praise of royalty, strong men came hurrying through, while Britannia's guns with their long-range guns sailed into the fight. Oh, the night fell black, and the rifles crack in the fields of green. In the leaden rain, 7 tons of flame did shine over the lands of sea. By shining blade of where was set that Ireland's sons be true. In the morning broke, still the flag war shook, till the mountain of fire drew. as slavery fled, oh glorious step, when you heard the fight did.
Marshal, I mean not to give you the trouble of bringing judicial proof to convict me legally of having acted in hostility to the government of His Britannic Majesty in Ireland. I admit the fact. From my earliest youth I have regarded the connection between Great Britain and Ireland as the curse of the Irish nation. My mind has been confirmed in this opinion by the experience of every succeeding year and the conclusions which I have drawn from the facts before my eyes. In consequence, I was determined to employ all of the powers which my individual efforts could move in order to separate the two countries. That Ireland was not able of herself to throw off the yoke I knew. I therefore sought for aid wherever it could be found. In honourable poverty, I rejected offers which to a man in my circumstances could be considered highly advantageous. I remained faithful to what I thought the cause of my country, and sought in the French Republic an ally to rescue 3 million of my countrymen. To subvert the tyranny of our execrable government, to break the connection with England, the never-failing source of all our political evils, and to assert the independence of my country, these were my objects. To unite the whole people of Ireland, to abolish the memory of all past dissensions, and to substitute the common name of Irishman in place of the denominations of Protestant, Catholic, and Dissenter. These were my means. If the men of property will not support us, they must fall. Our strength shall come from that great and respectable class, the men of no property. I have laboured to abolish the infernal spirit of religious persecution by uniting the Catholics and the Dissenters. To the former, I owe more than can ever be repaid. The service I was so fortunate to render them, they rewarded munificently. But they did more. When the public cry was raised against me, when the friends of my youth swarmed off and left me alone, the Catholics did not desert me. They had the virtue even to sacrifice their own interest to a rigid principle of honour. They refused, though strongly urged, to disgrace a man who, whatever his conduct towards the government might have been, had faithfully and conscientiously discharged his duty towards them. And in so doing, though it was in my own case, I would say they showed an instance of public virtue of which I know not whether there exists another example.
I am charged with being an emissary of France. An emissary of France. And for what end? It is alleged that I wish to sell the independence of my country. And to what end? Was this the object of my ambitions? And is this the mode by which tribunal of justice reconciles contradictions? No. I am no emissary. And my ambition was to hold a place amongst the deliverers of my country. Not in power, not in glory, but in the glory of the achievement. Connection with France was indeed intended, but only as far as mutual interest would sanction or require. I wish to procure for my country the guarantee which Washington procured for America. It was for these ends I sought aid in France, because France, even as an enemy, could not be more implacable than the enemy already in the bosom of my country. I have been charged with that importance in the efforts to emancipate my country, as to be considered the keystone of a combination of Irishmen, or, as your lordship expressed it, the life and blood of conspiracy. You do me honour overmuch. You have given to the subaltern all the credit of the superior. There are men engaged in this conspiracy who are not only superior to me, but even to your own conceptions of yourself, my lord. Men before the splendour of whose genius and virtues I should bow with respectful deference, and who would think themselves dishonoured to be called your friend, who would not disgrace themselves by shaking your blood-stained hand. I do not fear to approach the inefficient judge, to answer for the conduct of my whole life, and I to be appalled and falsified by a mere remnant of mortality here. By you too, if it were possible to collect all the innocent blood that you have shed in your unhallowed ministry in one great reservoir, your lordship might swim in it. Let no man dare, when I am dead, to charge me with dishonour. Let no man taint my memory by believing that I could have engaged in any cause but that of my country's liberty and independence, or that I could have become the pliant minion of power in the oppression of the miseries of my companions, only to give my countrymen their rights and my country her independence. My lords, you are impatient for the sacrifice. The blood which you seek is not congealed by the artificial terrors which surround your victim. It circulates warmly and unruffled through the channels which God created for noble purposes, but which you are bent to destroy for purposes so grievous that they cry to heaven. Be yet patient. I have but a few words more to say. I am going to my cold and silent grave. My lamp of life is nearly extinguished. My race is run. The grave opens to receive me, and I sink into its bosom. I have but one request to ask at my departure from this world. It is the charity of its silence. Let no man write my epitaph, for as no man who knows my motives dare now vindicate me. Let not prejudice or ignorance asperse them. Let them and me repose in obscurity and peace, and my tomb remain uninscribed, until other times and other men can do justice to my character, when my country takes her place amongst the nations of the earth. Then, and not till then, let my epitaph be written.
I take it as a great compliment that so many of you, the rising young women of Ireland, who are distinguishing yourselves every day and rising more and more to the front, should give me this opportunity. We older people look to you with great hope and great confidence that in your gradual emancipation, that you will bring fresh ideas, fresh energies, and above all, a great genius for sacrifice into this nation. Now, I am not going to discuss with you the subtle psychological question of why it was that so few women in Ireland have been prominent in the national struggle, or try to discover how they lost in the dark ages of persecution the magnificent legacy of Mayo, of Fes, Macha, and the other great Viking ancestors. True, several women distinguished themselves in the field of 1798, and we have the Women of the Nation newspaper and the Ladies' Land League. But for the most part, our women, those silent, steadfast nationalists at heart, have been content to remain quietly at home and leave all the fighting and the striving to the men. Lately, things seem to be changing. So now and again, a strong tide of liberty seems to be coming towards us, swelling and growing and carrying before it all the outposts that hold women enslaved and bearing them triumphantly into the life of the nation for which they belong. Women, from have until very recently stood so far removed from politics, should be able to formalize a much clearer and a more incisive view of the political situation than men. For a man, from the time he was a mere lad, is more or less in touch with politics, and he usually has the label of some party attached to him, long before he properly understands what it really means. Now here is a chance for the women. Fix your mind on the ideal of Ireland free, with her women enjoying the full right of citizenship in their own nation. And no one will be able to sidetrack you or so make use of you to use up the energies of the nation in obtaining all sorts of concessions. Concessions, too, that for the most part were coming in the natural course of evolution, and were perhaps just hastened a few years by the fierce agitations to obtain them. To sum up in a few words, what I want the young Ireland women to remember from me: regard yourselves as Irish. Believe in yourselves as Irish, as units of a nation distinct from England, and as determined to maintain your distinctiveness and to gain your deliverance. Arm yourselves with weapons to fight your nation's cause. Arm your souls with noble and free ideas. Arm your minds with the histories and the memories of your country and her martyrs, her language, and the knowledge of her arts and her industries.
Dearest Mother, you will, I know, have been longing to hear from me. Do not know how much you've heard since the last note I sent you at the GPO, but as you may be aware, the post office was set on fire on Friday evening, forcing us to abandon it. Having taken refuge in the houses on Moore Street, by Saturday we found that we were surrounded by troops. Therefore, in the hopes of saving the lives of our followers as well as preventing the further slaughter of the civilian population, we took the decision to ask the General commanding the British forces to discuss terms. He replied that he would receive me only if I surrendered unconditionally. This I did, in accordance with the decision of our provisional government who were with us in Moore Street, even though my own opinion was in favour of one last desperate sally before opening negotiations. However, I yielded to the majority. Saturday evening, having been taken to the headquarters of the British Command in Ireland, I wrote and signed the order to our men to lay down their arms. Since then, all of the men in Moore Street have been brought here. Our comrades from other parts of the city are, we believe, incarcerated in other barracks and prisons. All here are safe and well, including, I'm sure you'll be glad to know, Willie and the St. Enda's boys. They're not now in any danger. Our hope, belief, is that the government will spare the lives of our followers. For my own part, however, I do not hope or even desire to live. I and my fellow leaders are ready to die, and we will do so cheerfully and proudly. We have preserved Ireland's honour and our own. Our deeds of this past week are, we believe, the most splendid in Ireland's history. You should be prepared for the hard things people will say of us now, but know that we will be remembered by posterity and blessed by unborn generations. You too will be blessed because you were my mother. I have just received the Blessed Sacrament, and I am happy, except for the great grief of parting from you, my dearest mother. This is the death I should have asked if God had given me the choice of all deaths. To die a soldier's death for Ireland and for freedom. Do not grieve for this, but think of it as a sacrifice that God has asked of you and me. Goodbye again, dearest mother. May God bless you for your great faith and for your great love for me. May He remember all you have so bravely suffered. I hope soon to see Papa, and in a little while we shall be together again. I have not words to tell you of my love for you and how my heart yearns for you. Know that it is to you I will call in my heart in the last moment of promising. Your son, Patrick.
Having now heard the sentence of the court-martial held on me today, declare that in all my acts, all the acts for which I have been arraigned, I have been actuated by one motive only: the love of my country, the desire to make her a sovereign, independent state. I still hope and pray that my acts may have for consummation her lasting freedom and happiness. I am to die at dawn, 3:30 a.m., 3rd of May. I am ready to die, and I thank God that I die in so holy a cause. My country will reward my deed richly. On April 30th, I was astonished to receive by a message from Pádraig Pearse, Commandant General of the Army of the Irish Republic, an order to surrender unconditionally to the British General. I did not obey the order, as it came from a prisoner. I was then in supreme command of the Irish Army, consulted with my second in command, and decided to confirm the order. I knew that it would involve my death and the deaths of other leaders. I hoped that it would save many true men among our followers. Good lives for Ireland. God grant it has done so, and God approve our deed. For myself, I have no regret. The one bitterness that death has for me is the separation it brings from my beloved wife Muriel and my beloved children, Donna and Barbara. My country will take them as wards, I hope. I have devoted myself too much to national work and too little to the making of money to leave them incompetent. God help them and support them and give them a happy and prosperous life. Never was there a better, truer, purer woman than my wife Muriel, nor more adorable children than Don and Barbara. It breaks my heart to think I shall never see my children again, but I have not wept or mourned. I counted the cost of this, and am ready to pay it. Muriel has been sent for here. I do not know if she can come. She may not have anyone to take the children while she's coming if she does. Yesterday at my court-martial, in rebutting some trifling evidence, I made a statement as to my negotiations for surrender with General Lowe. On hearing it read after, it struck me that it might sound like an appeal. It was not such. I made no appeal, no recantation, no apology for my acts. In what I said, I merely claimed that I acted honourably and thoroughly in all that I set myself to do. My enemies have in turn treated me in an unworthy manner, but that can pass. It is a great and glorious thing to die for Ireland, and I can well forget all petty annoyances in the splendour of this. When my son Don was born, I thought that to him and not to me would this be given. God has been kinder to me than I hoped. My son will have a great name. To my son Don, my darling little boy, remember me kindly. Take my hope and purpose with my deed. For your sake and the sake of your beloved mother and sister, I would wish to live long, but you will recognize the thing I have done and see this as a consequence. I think still I have done a great thing for Ireland, and with the defeat of her army, won the first step of her freedom. God bless you, my son. My darling daughter Barbara, God bless you. I loved you more than ever a child has been loved. My dearest love, Muriel, thank you a million times for all that you have been to me. I have only one trouble in leaving life, leaving you so. Be brave, darling. God will assist and bless you. Goodbye. Kiss my darlings for me. I send you the few things I have saved out of this war. Goodbye, my love, till we meet again in heaven. I have sure faith of our union there. I kiss the paper that goes to you. Perhaps it is better you're not here. Yet Father Aloysius is going to make another effort to do something. God help and sustain you, my love. But for your suffering, this would all be joy and glory. Goodbye. Your loving husband, Thomas MacDonald. I return the darling's photographs. Goodbye, my love.
He received the last rites of his church with utmost reverence, for a priest who was his friend. He knelt for a long time in prayer on the cold, dark, hard floor of a cell in Kilmainham jail, with a crucifix clasped in his hand. Thomas MacDonald died as he had lived, with no rancour in his heart, courage high and unshaken, and with a firm faith in his Saviour, by whose precious blood we are redeemed. May he rest in peace.
Message to my wife from Richmond Barracks, April the 30th, 1916. Dear Kay, I'm in better health now. I'm more satisfied than for many a day. All will be well, eventually. But this is my last goodbye. And now you're ever before me to cheer me. God bless you and the boys. Make them be proud to follow the same path. Sean is with me, and McGee. All well, they all heroes. I am full of pride, my love. Yours, Tom. Love to John, Madge, etc. Message to the Irish people, May the 3rd, 1916. I and my fellow signatories believe we have struck the first successful blow for freedom. The next blow, which we have no doubt Ireland will strike, will win through. In this belief, we die happy. Thomas J. Clark, Communion Tale, May the 3rd, 1916.
Love to say, I love you. To tell you that I did everything I could to arrange for us to meet and get married. But that was impossible. Except for that, I have no regrets. My other actions have been as right as you could see and make them, and I cannot wish them undone. We will meet soon. You at any rate will not misjudge my actions. I've told a few people that I wish for you to have everything that belongs to me. This is my last wish, so please do see to it. Love, Joe.
Joe had been engaged to Grace since December, and they were to be married on Easter Sunday. McNeil's orders it counter-commanded not only the rising but also the wedding. For Joe was so involved in military council affairs that morning that he had time for nothing else. Grace and he agreed that if he was arrested, they would marry in prison. At dawn, on Wednesday the 3rd of May 1916, Grace's brother-in-law, Thomas McDonough, was executed in Kilmainham jail. At 6 o'clock that evening, she was summoned to the jail. For 2 hours, she walked up and down, alone, in the prison yard. While Joe, she was told, waited in a cell. At 8 o'clock, she was taken to the prison chapel, and as she entered, her fiancé was led in by soldiers with bayonets. The soldiers remained in the chapel while, at the altar, Father Eugene McCarthy, prison chaplain, he read the marriage service by candlelight, the gas having failed earlier. 2 soldier witnesses shifted their rifles from hand to hand as they assisted in the wedding. Immediately afterwards, the newly married couple were separated. Grace was taken to lodgings found for her by Father McCarthy in Thomas Street, and Joe was escorted back to his cell. They met only once again. Grace was brought to jail from Thomas Street in the early hours of Thursday morning. Soldiers with fixed bayonets stood by while she spoke to her husband in his cell. "Your 10 minutes are up," said the officer in charge, glancing at his watch, and they parted forever.
He was there with his hands tied behind his back, waiting to face the firing squad. I noticed his courteous, "Thank you, Father." His face reminded me of St. Francis. And "Welcome, Sister Death." He was absolutely calm, as cool and self-possessed as if he looked at what was passing and found it good. No fine talk, no heroics. A distinguished tranquility that came from his nobility of soul and his faith. Nothing else.
In the chapel here in old Kilmainham jail, I think about these last few weeks when they say we failed from our school days. They've told us we must yearn liberty won't be time to share our love. We must say goodbye. I know as the dawn is breaking, my heart is breaking too. On this wee morning as I walk out, my thoughts will be of you. I'll write some words upon the wall so everyone will know. Love so deep that I can see blood upon the rose. But rest just hold me in your arms and let this moment linger. Take me out at dawn and I will die. With all my love, I place this wedding ring upon your finger. There won't be time to share our love. We must say goodbye. No, there won't be time to share our love. We must say goodbye.
Last night I had a terrible experience. I was in a prison over there, and a group of soldiers came and brought me here. But halfway over we heard some shots. The men looked at each other and one said, "Too late." I thought they were bringing me here to see my brother Pat. We only heard the volley that told me. All the light and joy from this moment was gone from me. Father Augustus consoled, advised, and strengthened us. He told us how Pat had written his last letter, and I mentioned how I would be alive to look after our dear mother. This was not meant to be. I'm glad that Pat did not know let the Pat know that I would not be alive to look after our dear mother. I'm not sure he could have died so bravely. Not knowing. As I entered the gates of the Main jail, I heard some shots. They say these shots were from my brother. My spirit was stronger. I never shed a tear. My brother was my everything. We were always together in life, and we should always be together in death. My mother, Margaret, whispered to me that I had done right, that she was proud of me. My last few minutes with my friends passed too quickly. I gazed longingly after my mother, one long last look. My mother passed me a poem my dear brother had written the night before he died. The Main, The Wayfarer by Pat Pierce. beauty of this world has made me sad. This beauty that will pass. Sometimes my heart is shaking with great joy to see a leaping squirrel on a tree, to see a red ladybird upon a stalk, cute little rabbits in the field heaving under a slanty sun. Some green hill where shadows drifted by, some quiet hill where mounting men have sown and soon will reap, near to the gate of heaven, where little children with bare feet upon the sands of some Arab sea were playing in the streets of little towns and commons. Things young and happy, and then my heart has told me these will pass. Will pass and change, will die and be no more. Things bright and green, things young and happy, and I've gone upon my way south. Father Augustine, Father Albert, Father Willie, it's been my last mortal moments with you.
I do not grudge them. Lord, I do not grudge my 2 strong sons that I have seen go out to break their strength and die. They and a few in bloody protest for a glorious thing. They shall be spoken of among their people. The generations shall remember them and call them blessed. But I shall speak their names to my own heart. In the long nights, the little names that were familiar once round my dead heart. Lord, thou art hard on mothers. We suffer in their coming and their going. And though I grudge them not, I weary of the long sorrow. And yet, I have my joy. My sons were faithful and they fought.
As a result of my illness, my sisters Laura, Madge and Kathleen were summoned to Kilmainham to see me. Issues with the train service, as Dublin was on shutdown, meant that they could not arrive to Kilmainham until the early hours of, the afternoon of May the 3rd. They were escorted to Kilmainham in the early hours of May 4th, a sure sign my execution was going to be that morning. Kathleen had been praying all the while. I could see she was crying. I knew Tom had been shot that morning, so I knew my execution was nigh. This came as a stunning blow to my sisters, but I felt relieved that my martyrdom would be short, and I would not have to live through hell as an Irish political convict, like my uncle and his Fenian comrades once had. My sisters informed me, once they walked through the front gates of Kilmainham jail and faced the soldiers, that they were full of pride from the sacrifices of our heroes and the pride of our race and the sacrifice of our heroes gave us strength. They were so full of pride that they could have faced death, said Madge. My sisters were ordered to go and see me one at a time, with Laura last. Laura called me her special chum. Oh, blessed is he indeed amongst women. Thankfully, the commandant changed his mind and conceded. My sisters were all escorted in to see me by 5 soldiers. My cell, number 66, surely not a good sign, reminded me of the hellish place that is Kilmainham jail, a symbol of tyranny thrust against us, against our will. Do not fear, God is with me. My sister seemed perturbed by my surroundings. All I had was one blanket. I remained dressed in my volunteer uniform, and I wore it with pride. My chum Laura stated that I looked like some brave young knight that had won some great victory. And so I had. I believed that I and my comrades would save the soul of Ireland. The soldiers remained, surrounding myself and my sisters, which proved to be our last moments together, with their bayonets ready. Madge felt that I had the highest honours, being so close to the cells of Robert Emmet and Wolfe Tone. I told her that I did my best. I am proud to die for my country. This week's fight will bring new life to Ireland one day. My only regret is that I cannot be part of this new Ireland. England has given me a martyr's crown. How ironic. Madge told me that we'd all be together one day. That brought me joy. But Ireland, even in this sorry state, is my heaven. I will have a glorious meeting with Pat, Thomas, and Tom in heaven. I protest against the charge against me of assisting the enemy. I did the best for my land to protect her against her enemy, her only enemy. I acted as a soldier of Ireland. I gave my best to the British soldiers that were with me this week, as a lot of them were humane. I do not blame them for the actions of their state. Laura asked me, why don't you shoot them, as they're surely going to shoot you? I am not a barbarian. I have honour. We got strict orders, once we were captured, that we were to be treated under the laws of civilised warfare, as prisoners of war, and to be treated as kindly as possible. And all acts and all people that was carried out to the letter. I told my sisters to give my best to my beloved mother, to my aunt, and to tell Uncle John we did my best. I gave my sisters a small purse with a few coins, 2 pencils, and buttons off my uniform as mementos. They inquired if I had been fed. I pointed to what looked like dog biscuits on the cold floor. I told them to leave with their heads held high and to hold on to each other as they left the jail. I could hear the O'Hanrahan sisters out the back. Mick must be next. They heard he was to be deported, but once they found out that he was to be executed, one of the sisters fainted. I asked if my clothes and my tunic could be given to my sisters. this was refused. One kind soldier said to me he was sorry that I was about to die, but couldn't understand my outlook. And I responded to him that he was probably English. And how would he feel if Germany were to win the war? How would he feel if he had to bow down to a foreign invader as they invaded our land? At dawn, my soul will fly to its reward. And for once in my life, I'll be free. And I hope this for all my Irish brothers and sisters one day.
My sisters and mother received the note. It stated, Mr. O'Hanlon, a prisoner in Canada, wishes to see his mother and his sisters before his deportation to England. They had known of being captured and brought to Kilmainham. They were woken in the middle of the night and brought to Kilmainham while Dublin was under curfew. My mother decided to remain at home, paralysed under the shock. My sisters met Mrs. Tom Clark and her sisters who had been to see their brother Edward Ned Daly. They were told Ned was to be shot at home. I shall never forget the screams and howls of my dear sisters as the realisation dawned on them that I too would be shot at home. 5 soldiers pushed them and brought them to my cell. My cell, number 67, was in complete darkness except for a bucket and a blanket. I remained calm as I met my sisters. I was ready for death. My main concern was for my sisters and my dear mother. Why had they changed their minds and decided to execute me rather than report me? Either way, I was ready for my death since the moment of surrender. I fully realised for in order for Ireland to change, we must pay the price. A price that I'm willing to pay for the salvation of my nation. My 2 sisters were cautioned by the soldiers assembled in the cell for trying to give me information about what was happening on the streets of Dublin and with my friends. We were only allowed to discuss personal matters. They did tell me that Pat, Tom Clark and Tom McDonough had been to see our father that morning, and that I was to join them at home. We were currently told the time was running out. I wish to make my last will and testament. I, Michael O'Hanlon, give and bequeath all my rights as a swordsman of the brigade to my mother and after her to my sisters. Michael O'Hanlon, Kilmainham, 4th of May, 1916. A broken old chair and table were brought in so this could be dictated. Two of my jailers were my witnesses. I hadn't eaten in 10 hours, and I had no water that day, much to my sister's disbelief. One soldier did rush out to fetch me some water. I drank it from the can. But I wanted my priest more than the water, and I called for one. It was hours before he reached me. I had hoped to spend my last hour with him. I don't know how my sisters would explain my impending death to my mother and sister at home. I'd sent a message to Father Augustine to be ready to console my family. Mr. O'Hanlon, a prisoner in Kilmainham, wishes to see his mother and his sisters before his deportation to England. What an error. I wonder, will he ever say sorry to my mother or try to explain what they have done? Will he ever be sorry for the crimes they have committed? I am not sorry for what I did. I go to my Maker cleansed and at peace.
After I had left Willie Pierce, I saw O'Hanlon in his cell. And I write here again what I wrote of him in another place, shortly after he had laid down his life for Ireland. He was one of the most truest and noblest characters that ever has been my privilege to meet. His last message to me before he went down the corridor to face the firing squad was, "Father, I'd like you to meet my sisters and my mother and console them." I promised him I would, and whispered in his ear. I grasped his hand, which was tied behind his back, and in his hand he grasped mine, most warmly. We exchanged a look, and he went forth to die. Turning from him, I saw Joseph Mary Plunkett, who was standing nearby. We returned to the friary after the executions and offered mass for the dear departed. About 10:30, as I was going to fulfill my promise to Michael O'Hanlon, I met his sisters on Church Street. They were coming to see me. I returned with them in one of our parlours to try to console them for the loss of such a great brother. They were brave and grateful, especially when I promised that I would call as soon as possible and see their mother. That afternoon, I went to see their brother, Harry, in Kilmainham jail. He asked me if I'd seen his brother, and I answered yes. "Where is he, Father?" was his next question. And when I replied haltingly, and my heart stirred within me, that he was well, he suspected something. So I decided to tell him the full story, as I knew he was able and man to accept it. When I described the scene of his brother's execution, he broke down in tears and sobs. This was perfectly natural, of course. But with a few cheery words, I managed to console him, and he pulled himself together. I spoke on, and after some time, I promised to meet him again, and we parted. The good God has given me the privilege of attending him later, during his last illness in the Mater Misericordia Hospital, and anointing him before his happy death.
In the early hours of May 5th, Father Augustine entered my cell and he grabbed my hand. I remained quiet and calm as ever. I expressed my sorrow for the surrender. I asked the soldier who was attending my cell to bring some water to wash. He just brought me a cup. I suppose he thinks that was enough to wash myself with. I emptied one of my pockets of my silver and coppers, and I asked Father Augustine to give them to the poor. I also took out my rosary from my other pocket and placed them in his hand and asked him to give to my mother after I passed. I began my confession with the simplicity and humility of a child, after which I took Holy Communion and spent some time in prayer. I really was relieved that Father Augustine would be there in my final moments and to walk me to the stonebreaker's yard. It brings me great solace to know that his dear hands will anoint me after my fall. When the time was up, a soldier knocked on the door and asked us to follow him out to the hallway. I requested that my hands be not bound, and I promised I would remain still. I had served as a major in the Boer War, and I had a soldier's honor. But my request was refused. I asked not to be blindfolded, again for the same reasons aforementioned. But this too was declined. I was in fact told I was a traitor of the British Empire, and I was to receive the death of one who commits treason. I've often looked down guns before, British guns particularly, but this time I won't be so lucky. They placed a white piece of paper on my chest to mark my heart. We entered the yard where 12 soldiers awaited. 6 knelt on one knee and 6 were standing behind. I faced them, not 50 feet from where I stood. 2 or 3 feet behind me was the wall. The soldiers that had accompanied me withdrew over to the left, where the governor and the doctor stood. But I stood close to Father Augustine in prayer. The officer then took me gently by the arm and led me to my spot. I was still in prayer when the shots rang out. From the corridor of death into the valley of death, I passed.
Franciscan Capuchin Friary, Church Street, Dublin, 13th of June, 1916. Dear Mrs. McBride, I had intended writing to you long before this, but I've been very busy. To your son, however, who called here, I've given all information about Major McBride, and I'm sure it had reached you long since. He was a gentle and noble character, and his last thoughts were about you, God's poor, his friend, and God whom he went to meet in a most beautiful Catholic spirit. I was with him in good time on the morning of his death. We said prayers together. In his prison cell, he went to confession and received Holy Communion, and prepared for a death like a good Catholic. He knew no fear. When standing together at the entrance to the corridor, which was to pass to his death, I whispered in his ear to offer up his life in atonement for his sins and transgressions he had committed in his life. Yes, I will. I'm glad you told me that, he replied. I was with him to the last, and he knew I was by his side. The moment he fell, I rushed to him and lighted him. I feel God was kind and merciful to him. He spoke of you and sent you his watch and beads, which I'm sure you received. He also gave me £1 note and some shillings for the poor. I hope I may meet you one day, but let me say now that you have reason to be proud of your brave son. We shall meet him again in heaven, please God. May he rest in peace, and may God console you. Very sincerely yours, Father Augustine.
For Richmond Barracks on the 5th of May. To my wife at Fitzwilliam Terrace, Gartree Road, Upper Mines. A care of Richard Kent, 71 Richmond Road, Drumcondra. Writing in English to say well, but expecting the worst, which may be the best. Everyone amazingly cheerful and resigned to their separate fates. I can see there is a reign of terror outside. Everyone seems to be here at Richmond Barracks. Lily probably Kilmainham. I saw her. Not much comfort here, but I sleep well, I get ample rations. Make Mrs. B's mind easy, because I'm sure she's worrying. Tell Ronan to be a good little boy and to remember Easter 1916 forever. I'm in excellent form. I'm sure relatives, etc. will be looked after later on. Don't expect to see number 2 as you left it. Probably looted by this Jew or Arava, I don't know which. Mr. McGettigan, solicitors, 3 St Andrews Street. Undertakers also. Might get you or Richard to come and see me. In Kent. On the 5th of May at 4 o'clock from Richmond Barracks. Anya, my wife. Trial closed. I expect the death sentence which better men have already suffered. I only regret now that I no longer have the opportunity to show what I think of you. Now that the chance of seeing you again is so remote, I shall die like a man for Ireland's sake. Eamon Kent. At 2:30 a.m. on the 8th of May 16. My dearest wife, not wife, but widow before these lines reach you. I am here without hope of this world and without fear, calmly awaiting the end. I have had Holy Communion and Father Augustine has been with me and will be back again. Dearest, silly little Fanny, my poor little sweetheart of how many years ago, ever my comforter. God comfort you now. What can I say? I die a noble death for Ireland's freedom. Men and women will vie with one another to shake your dear hand. And be proud of me as I am and ever was of you. My cold exterior was but a mask, but it has saved me in these last few days. You have a duty to me, Aunt Ramona, and that is to live. My dying wishes are that you should remember your state of health. Work only as much as be necessary and freely accept the little attentions which in time will be showered upon you. You will be, you are, the wife of one of the leaders of the revolution. Sweeter still, you are my little child, my dearest pet, my sweetheart of the hawthorn hedges and summer's eves. I remember all, and I banish all, and that I may be strong and die bravely. I have 1 hour to live. In God's judgment, and through His infinite mercy, a place near your poor granny, and my mother, and father, and Jen, and all the fine old Irish Catholics who went through the scourge of similar misfortune through this vale of tears into the promised land. The admission about the story McGreha. Tug the can agus be fide agat, a feckiv educator rish, the flas J. Tusa, Misha, agus Ronan, Biog Bot. Adieu, Eamon Kent.
My darling wife, pulse of my heart, this is the end of all things earthly. Sentence of death has been passed. At 4:15 tomorrow, the sentence will be carried out by shooting. Irishmen will die for trying to make Ireland a free nation. God's will be done. I am prepared. But oh my darling, if only you and the little ones could come with me. If we could all reach heaven together. My heartstrings are torn to pieces when I think of you and them, of our manly James, happy-go-lucky John, shy, warm Una, Daddy's girl. And oh, little Joseph, my little man, my little man. With God's help, my wife, dear wife, I cannot keep the tears back when I think of him. He will rest in my arms no more. To think I have to leave you to battle through the world with them without my help. With God's help, I will always be with you. If you can, I'd like to dedicate Una to the service to God, and Joseph also, so that we may have a tomb to rest on as penance for our sins. Try and do this if you can. Pray that it may be so to our divine Lord. Father McCarthy has just been in to see me and heard my confession. He made me feel so happy and contented. He will see to the education and general welfare of our children. We must go and see him, my darling. I do not believe that our blood has been shed in vain. I believe Ireland will come out greater and grander, but she must not forget that she is Catholic. She must keep her faith. I find no fault with the soldiers or the guards. I forgive them from the bottom of my heart. Pray for all the souls who died in this fight, Irish and English. God and His Blessed Mother take your dear ones from under their care. A husband's blessing on your dear head, my loving wife. A father's blessing on the heads of my children, James, John, Una, and Joseph, my little man, my little man, my little man. His name unnerves me again. All your faces arise before me. God bless you all. God bless you all, my darling. Pulse in my heart. Goodbye for a while. I feel that you'll be in heaven with me soon. I offer up my life in atonement for all our sins and any debts due. I must go and prepare now, my love. The last few hours must be spent with God, and God alone. Your loving husband, Michael Mallon, Stevens Green, Commander.
Kilmainham Prison, Dublin, Sunday, May the 7th, 1916. My dear sister Mary, before this note reaches you, I shall have fallen as a soldier in the cause of Irish freedom. I write to bid you a last farewell in this world, and I rely on you to pray for me, and to get all the prayers said for me. I go, I trust, to meet poor Bridget above, and I'm quite prepared for the journey before me. The priest was in with me this morning, and I received Holy Communion. It was only this evening that the finding of the court-martial was conveyed to me. Poor mother will miss me, but I feel that with God's help she will manage to pull along. You know the Irish proverb, God's help is closer than the door. The agony of the past few days has been intense, but I feel resigned to God's holy will now. Do not blame me for the role that I have taken. As a soldier, I merely followed the orders of my superiors, who should have been in a position to know what was best in Ireland's interest. Let there be no talk of foolish enterprise. I have no vain regrets. Think of all the Irishmen who fell under another flag at the Dardanelles, attempting to do what English experts now realise was an absolute impossibility. If you really love me, teach the children in your class the history of their own land, and teach them that the cause of Kathleen Ulfon never dies. Ireland shall be free from the centre to the sea, as soon as the people of Ireland need Ireland's freedom. It may be that the struggle we have made will lend strength to Ireland's claim at the Great Peace Conference, when the map of Europe is to be redrawn. Let you do your share by teaching Ireland's history as it should be taught. Mary, I'm frightened. Pray for me. And get everybody to pray for me. Your loving brother, Jack.
I would prefer to be executed. We are all ready to meet our God. We had hopes of coming out alive. Now that we are defeated, outside that barrack wall, the people whom we have tried to emancipate have demonstrated nothing but hate and contempt for us. We would be better off dead, as life would be torture. We can thank the Mother of God for her kindness in her intercession for us, that we have had the time to prepare ourselves to meet our Redeemer. I pray for my fellow prisoners and say the Rosary to remember all those who had fought for Irish freedom and for those who would fight for it in the future. My disbelief at the terrible turn of events for Irish freedom affected me to the very core of my soul. In the last few remaining hours of my life, I choose not to see my family, but to spend the time writing letters to those I love. I feel that if I see any of them, it will cause too much grief for them all. Con Culver to his sister Lila, May 7th, 1916. My dear Lila, I did not like to call you to this jail to see me before I left this world because I felt it would grieve us both too much. So I am just dropping you a line to ask you to forgive me anything I do owe you, and to say goodbye to you, to all my friends, and to get you and them to say a prayer for my soul. Perhaps I'd never get the chance of knowing when I was to die again, and so I'll try to die well. I received this morning and hope to do so again before I die. Pray for me. Ask Father Divine and Father Healy and Father O'Brien to say a Mass for me. Also, any priest you know. May God help us. Me to die well, you to bear your sorrow. I am your loving brother, Con.
After the surrender, about 80 girls, including myself, were arrested and taken to Kilmainham. I saw Con Colbert at Mass on Sunday the 7th of May with Eamon Cant, Michael Mallon and Sean Houston. I was taken to Con's cell. When I entered the cell, Con was lying on the floor with a blanket over him. There was no plank, bed or mattress in the cell, and it was a bitterly cold night. There was a little table and a stool in the cell, and a candle lighting on the table as Con was expecting a priest. When he saw me, Con jumped up and said, "How are you?" "I am one of the lucky ones." Well, of course I knew what was going to happen to him when they said that. What about Eamon Cant? He was the only other one of the men that I knew. He has drawn the lucky lot as well. Con had his prayer book with him and said he would leave it to his sister Lila. "Here," he said, "is what I am leaving you." He took 3 buttons from his volunteer uniform. He said that was all they had left him. He said he was never happier, as he was going to get the honour of dying for Ireland. He said he was quite resigned to go before his Maker. I said to him that he was setting an example for all soldiers of how they should die. The soldier who was present was crying, and he said, "If only we could die such deaths." I asked Con why he did not call for his sister Lila, and he said he did not like to cause her trouble. I knelt down and asked him for a blessing, and he said in a simple, earnest way, "We will all meet again above under happier circumstances." As I was leaving the cell, he was smiling. He said the priest would be along shortly, so he would not lie down again. I heard the police the following morning. Me and the girl who was sleeping in the cell with me got up. We said the De Profundis 3 times for the men who were passing into eternity.
And the boys in Green went out to fight the forces of the crowd. With muzzers bold and hearts of gold, then countess dressed in green, and high above the GPO, the rebel flag was seen. Then came 10,000 khaki coats, our rebel boys to kill. Before they reached O'Connell Street, the fight they got their fill. The machine guns and artillery and cannon alone. But it wasn't our fault that everyone got back to England shore. For 6 long days we held them off at odds of 10 to 1. And through our lines they could not pass for all their heavy guns. And deadly poison gas they used to try and crush in vain, and burnt our Irish capital like the Germans did Lorraine. They shot our leaders in a jail without a proper trial, they said. They murdered women and children who in their cellars lay. They dug their grave with gun and spade to hide them from our view, because they could not kill or catch the rebels of old and true. For we will love Ireland, shall white life remains, and we will say God speed the day the rebels rise again. Irish slaves and English names may try to deceive. Remember those who died for you, and likewise.
May 9th, 1916, Cork Detention Barracks. My dear mother, I write this in haste and as a record of my wrongdoing to fight for the freedom of my country. The first time I knew freedom was in Boston in my youth. I cherished that time. When I came back home, I threw myself into every organisation, every Irish organisation I could find. Even then I was intent on improving my homeland. Such was its sorry state. I fought for tenant rights. I encouraged farmers to hold back rent. If David could have success against boycott, why couldn't we do likewise in Cork? I didn't mind prison. It just meant that when I came out, I devoted myself even more to our cultural revival and to Sinn Féin. As a Gael Góir and a lover of my culture, it was easy to see the decline, especially in Dublin. So in January 1914, I enlisted in the Cork Brigade of the Irish Volunteers, me, David and Richard. We all marched to the orders of Thomas McCurtain. We organised a local volunteer company in Castlelyons and trained in secret on the farm, the first and perhaps the last teetotal unit in Ireland. After the volunteers split, me, Terence McSweeney and I remained loyal to that great Irishman, Owen McNeill. Then came the first RIC raid on the farm. You remember it well, Mum. 2 months I got for the arms they found. What's 2 months anyway? And then came Easter Sunday. We waited for Pearse's order to mobilise. And when McNeill said no, we went into hiding, hoping that McSweeney would order the Cork Brigade into action. But the order never came. Only defeat came. And then the RIC struck again, brave members of the RIC. This time, when they surrounded the house, we were not giving in without a fight. Those were our finest hours, and our darkest. You, my 85-year-old mother, loading and reloading our guns. We blew the head off W.C. Rowell, and they got David badly. And when we ran out of ammunition and surrendered, they plugged Richard as he ran for the woods. God rest his soul, and may he soon rest mine. It is May 9, and I await my death, touching my rosary beads. I am to be shot by firing squad at 4 a.m. My only dying wish is that no Irishman be among the soldiers who must execute me. I missed all that happened in Dublin, but defended the honour of my family and my nation. If Ireland is to be free, it must come from the whole island. A day of reckoning will come. Mother, after my death, I've asked Father Sexton to pass my temperance badge to Father Ahern. He knows how much it meant. I thank you, Mother, for all you did for me, for all you taught me and the boys, for the love of our country you instilled in us, for your love as a mother. I go to my death a proud Irishman, your proud son, happy to die for my country. I have done my duty as a soldier of Ireland. Soon I shall see the face of God, and there, in eternal life, I shall await your gentle embrace. Your son, Tomas.
Thomas Kent's body was placed in an unmarked grave within the walls of the prison. A century-long campaign to identify the remains and repatriate them to the family plot, Castle Lyons, culminated in Kent's state funeral on September the 18th, 2015.
Sean walked here with a letter to his brothers and sisters, May 11, 1916. My dear brothers and sisters, I sincerely hope that this letter will not come as a surprise to any of you, and above all, that none of you will worry over what I have to say. It is just a wee note to say that I have been tried by court-martial and sentenced to be shot, to die the death of a soldier. By the time this reaches you, I will, with God's mercy, have joined in heaven my poor father, my poor mother, as well as many friends who have been shot during the week. They died like heroes, and with God's help I will act throughout as heroic as they did. I only wish you could see me now. I am just as calm and collected as if I were talking to you or taking a walk with Migrin or some old friends and neighbours around home. I have priests with me almost all the time for the past 24 hours. One dear old friend of mine, Reverend Dr. Brown Maynooth, stayed with me up very late last night. I feel a happiness the like of which I have never experienced in my life before, and a feeling I could not describe. Surely when you know my state of mind, none of you will worry or lament my fate, though you ought envy me. The cause for which I die has been rebaptized during the past week by the blood of as good as men as ever trod God's earth, and should I not feel justly proud to be numbered amongst them? Before God, let me again assure you of how happy and proud I am. It is not alone for myself so much I feel happy, but for the fact that Ireland has produced such great men. Enough of the personal note. I had hoped, Pat, to be able to help you in placing the children in positions to earn their livelihood, but God will help you provide for them. Tell them how I struck out for myself and counsel them to always practice truth, honesty, straightforwardness in all things and sobriety. If they do this and remember their country, they will be all right. Insist on their learning the language and history. I have a lot of books and I'm making arrangements with one of the priests who have to turn into a library, but I can arrange that you get some books for the children. You might like to get these clothes that I am wearing to have them in memory of me. So I will arrange, if possible, to have them sent to my old lodgings, and you all come there and take any other little things belonging to me that you'd like to have. There are a few copies of a recent photo which you can take, and you might order copies for friends that may wish to have one. Of course, you got the letter I sent you a few days before Easter. By the way, when you're in Dublin, find out if I owe my landlady any money, and if so, pay her. I don't think I do, but at the moment I'm not so certain. One more word about the children. Put some of them to learn trades. You will see if they show any promise of mechanical or technical skill. They were too small when I last saw them to advise. Tell Maggie she ought to try and get Mary Ann to go for teaching. I don't know what Cathy B ought to do. As for Dan, I suppose he will decide for himself. God direct him. He need not regret having stayed at home so much. Make a copy of this and send it to others as soon as you can. A lot of my friends will want to hear about me. They can tell them that in my last hours I am the same Sean that they always knew, and that even now I enjoy a laugh and a joke as good as ever. I don't know if you will require a pass to go to Dublin, but you'd better find out before you start. Perhaps martial law will have been withdrawn before you come. It was passed for 1 month, and I don't think it will be renewed. If I think of any other things to say, I will tell them to Miss Ryan, who, in all probability, had I lived, would have been my wife. I will send instructions to my landlady that she knows you all right. Goodbye, dear brothers and sisters. Make no lament for me. Pray for my soul and feel a lasting pride at my death. I die that the Irish nation may live. God bless and guard you all, and may He have mercy on my soul. Yours as ever, Sean.
Your pale, dead face, with sure, insistent claim, shall haunt my soul as long as thought endures. Waking remembrance of your wasted frame, afire with that all-conquering soul of yours, as last I saw you, captive in the net, and heard you in Kilmainham's prison cell, review the patient years with no regrets, and say in face of death that all is well. I know you walked, O sand-lamed steps, to die with high disdain for all who hold life dear and sacrifice their honour like a pawn. No dimness, born of agony and fear, was in those spirit eyes, as carelessly you faced the rifles at the grey of dawn.
To the Field General Court Martial held at Dublin Castle on May 9th, 1916. I do not wish to make any defence except against charges of wanton cruelty to prisoners. These trifling allegations that have been made, if they record facts that really happened, deal only with the almost unavoidable incidents of a hurried uprising against long-established authority, and nowhere show evidence of set purpose to wantonly injure unarmed persons. We went out to break the connection between this country and the British Empire, and to establish an Irish Republic. We believe that the call we then issued to the people of Ireland was a nobler call, in a holier cause, than any call issued to them during this war, having any connection with the war. We succeeded in proving that Irish men are ready to die, endeavouring to win for Ireland those national rights which the British government has been asking them to die to win for Belgium. As long as that remains the case, the cause of Irish freedom is safe. Believing that the British government has no right in Ireland, never had any right in Ireland, and never can have any right in Ireland, the presence in any one generation of Irishmen, of even a respectable minority, ready to die to affirm that truth, makes that government forever a usurpation and a crime against human progress. I personally thank God that I have lived to see the day when thousands of Irish men and boys and hundreds of Irish women and girls were ready to affirm that truth and to attest it with their lives if need be. James Connolly, Commandant General, Dublin Division, Army of the Irish Republic.
We were waking up at about 1 o'clock in the morning. There was an army lorry at the door and a British officer told us that the prisoner, James Connolly, wished to see his wife and eldest daughter. Mama had an idea that he wasn't well, that he had taken a turn for the worst, but it jumped to my mind immediately. All the signatories of the proclamation had been shot except Papa and Sean McDermott. I immediately said to myself, Papa is going to be shot. Anyway, we got ready, we went down and were taken in the army lorry right through town. It was an awfully queer, eerie trip. There was still a horrible smell of burning in O'Connell Street. There was a curfew and not a soul to be seen, not even a soldier, until we came to the bridge. There was a number of them there. When we were shown in, Papa said, "Well, Lily, I suppose you know what this means." She said, "Oh no, Jim, oh no." And he said, "Yes, lovey." And then Mama broke down sobbing, with her head on the bed. Papa said, "I fell asleep for the first time tonight, and they wakened me up at 11 and told me I'm to die at dawn." Mama said, "Oh no," again, and then crying bitterly, "But your beautiful life, Jim, your beautiful life." And he said, "Wasn't it a full life, Lily? And isn't this a good end?" So she tried to control herself. I was trying to control myself too. And we stayed there, talking of little things. He was trying to plan a life for us after he'd be gone. And then they told us time was up and we'd have to go. So Mama, we couldn't get Mama away from the bed, and the nurse had to come and help her away. And I went to the door, and then I went back again. And that was the last I saw of him.
My dominating thought was to keep Ireland out of the war. England has no right on us in law or morality. Ireland should not sell her soul for any mess of empire. If I should die tomorrow, bury me in Ireland. And I shall die in the Catholic faith, for I accept it fully now. It tells me what my heart saw wrong. Well, I saw it in the faces of the Irish. Now I know what it is I loved in them. The chivalry of Christ speaking through human eyes. It is from that source all lovable things come. For Christ was the first knight. And now, I still write in hope. Hope that God will be with me to the end. If I die tomorrow, as I think is fated, then I shall die with my sins forgiven, and God's pardon on my soul. and I shall be with many brave and good men. Think of the long succession of the dead who have died for Ireland, and it is a great death. Oh, that I may support it bravely. If it be said that I shed tears, remember, they come not from cowardice, but from sorrow. And brave men are not ashamed to weep sometimes. I hope I do not weep, but if I do, it shall be nature's tribute wrung from me, who never hurt a human being, and whose heart was so compassionate and pitiful for the grief of others. A long waiting is a cruel thing. 3 months and 11 days. It is a strange, strange fate. And now, as I come face to face with death, I feel just as if they were going to kill a boy. For I feel like a boy, with my hands so free of blood, and my heart so compassionate and pitiful that I cannot comprehend how anyone wants to hang me. It is they, not I, who are the traitors, filled with a lust of blood and hatred for their fellows. These artificial and unnatural wars, prompted by greed and power, are the source of all the misery that is destroying mankind. I shall still hope till the sheriff comes. And if he comes, it is to prepare to meet God with calm and hope, and to leave all here with an infinite blessing from a finite heart. No man in the world ever got so much friendship as I have in these last days. The great outpouring of love and goodness on me is the greatest proof of God's love for sinful men. God gave me to this captivity and death, and I kiss the divine hand that leads me to the grave. Alas, so much of the story dies with me. Old story. Yet in spite of all, the truth and right lives on in the heart of the brave and the lowly. It is better I die thus, on the scaffold. It was a glorious death for Ireland's sake, for Alan, Larkin, O'Brien, and Robert Emmett, and the men of '98, and William Orr, all for the same cause, all in the same way. Surely, there is no more glorious cause in history, ever defeated, yet undefeated.
Did what he had to do. He died upon the gallows, but that was nothing new. Afraid they would be beaten before the bench of time, they turned a trick by forgery and blackened his good name. A perjurer stood ready to prove their forgery true, then gave it out to all the world. Now that is something new. For Spring Bryce had to whisper it. For being their ambassador. Then the speakers had it, and writers by the score. Come Tom and Dick, come all your troop, who cried it far and wide. Come from the forger and his desk. Leave the perjurer's side. Come speak your bit in public, that some amends be made for this most gallant gentleman who is in quick man made.
When I was growing up in Dundalk and was quite young, I had heard stories about my maternal grandfather, that he had been one of the Dundalk volunteers who'd gone off to Dublin to join up with Connolly. And I'd heard little bits of the story, but nobody seemed to be too sure what happened. And I think probably my grandfather, Frank Martin, had sort of kept it to himself. He was quiet that way, I believe. Although he died before I was born. But a few years ago, I got very lucky in that the testimonies of the various volunteers in Dundalk were put online. They had signed testimonies. And this allowed me to put together the story. And then I did some other research, and I found in some of the British Army archives testimony that came from a soldier that had been involved. And that brought me to the facts that led to this poem called Castle Bellingham, Easter 1916. And it has been published for the 1916 commemorations in a literary journal in Drogheda in Ireland. Castle Bellingham, Easter 1916, in memory of Frank Martin, 1886 to 1951. There are many kinds of passing. Some are witnessed, some are never known. The train light ghosting the bottom of a field, a note from one hand to another, a gun from coat pocket to coat pocket. I wonder if you passed Pierce when taken into Richmond Barracks with the other Dundalk men. He'd be taken out to Kilmainham to be shot, you brought in for court-martial. They say Pierce whistled walking out, his last tune his own, hearing too perhaps the sound of boots on stone, an early breeze, birds, all senses heightened, keenly taken in, the unlocking of those cold rifles waiting, words of command, and then that last blast of noise that brightened his heart. Here is the end from the end of a gun, a way of kicking life out of a body. You had been on the march to join up with the volunteers in Dublin. Orders and counter-orders had you forth and back on roads until turned again towards the capital, you stopped in Castle Bellingham. You were set to guard 2 guards and a lieutenant, taken from his car, heading home from the Fairy Town races. Lieutenant Dunville was jeering and abusing us, you later stated in your testimony. I cannot explain what caused the shooting, but some shots were fired. There was great excitement at the time, mainly caused by Lieutenant Dunville's antics. The constable lay dead. It was a volunteer from the back of a commandeered car who made the shot, put the constable out of his life. You may have been appalled, but in Richmond Barracks you were charged with open rebellion, the waging of war against His Majesty the King, murdering Constable McGee, RIC, at Castle Bellingham. doing acts for the purpose of assisting the enemy. There is only one place this could go. Is there an age we reach when we can rise to the possibility of our death waiting in the coming day? Here you were, 30 years old, your death dealt to you, a joker from a pack, the cards snapped. That sentence was later commuted to 10 years, something you could do, interred in Dartmoor. Then ended a year later by amnesty. Surely some old Celtic god had been holding your name, Frank, in his hands. Thank you.
Oh, the money here I had, I have spent it in good company, and all the harm here I done, alas, it was to none but me, and all I've done for want of to memory now I can't recall. So fill to me by us, good night and joy be with you all. How far the comrades here I had, they're sorry for going away. All the sweethearts that I love, they would wish me one more day to stay. I'll gently rise, softly call, good night and joy be with you all. Court, pretty girl, and perhaps be welcomed back again. But since it has so ordered me to marry now, I can't recall. Oh, fill to me the parting glass, good night and joy be with you all. Good night and joy be with you all.
This evening we know it was a very heavy night, but it's wonderful to commemorate the leaders 100 years to the week of the executions themselves. When I worked in Kilmainham Jail, one of the lovely things that, well, not many lovely things there, but one of the things that used to reassure me of the human race was just when you go into the cells, you'd see the little weather reports on the wall and graffiti that some of the leaders and other prisoners left. And I used to just go in and just spend my lunch breaks just looking at the graffiti, thinking that before these men and women were anything, they were human beings. And the fact that we're standing here, sitting here tonight in Dubai, as Irish people, as British people, as wherever we are from tonight, and commemorating these great leaders, that says that what they died for really was important, and for us it gave us everything. So before we go tonight, just a huge thank you to Sean and Blaine for lovely music. Many of our people tonight, many of our performers, it's their first time on the stage, and it's not easy, especially when you're carrying the weight of history. So a huge thank you. I'll just go through their names. If I call you, just stand up. We can save the claps till the end. We always say that, but we always clap anyways. Frank Dullahan, David Daly, Esna Traynor, Ronan Dennehy, Sean Quigley, Anthony Egan, Campbell Tennant, Luke Dooley, Ciara O'Donoghue, Paul Downs, Aileen Kelly, Donald Patterson, David Murphy, Paul McMahon, Philip Rogers, John Bracken, Sean O'Sunawan, Conor O'Donnell, Marie Dullahan, Niall O'Toole, Campbell Tennis, I wasn't called it already, sorry, Peter Denny, Kieran Mulhern, and Lorna Maher, Mike Green, and Celia Cookson. We have 26 people. Thank you all so much for that. And again, thank you very much for coming. Join us for a drink. I think we all need several. And a huge thank you to McGettigans as well. Thank you so much. Ethna, my boss, is ordering me. She wants all the performers on stage for a good picture. This is Countess Markovich. You don't mess with this one.
Why is soft the wind blew down the glen and shook the golden barley? 'Twas hard the awful words to frame, to break the ties that bound us, but harder still to bear the shame of foreign chains around us. And so I said,